Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the showdown of the year. This is my first official battery drain test of the decade, and boy is it going to be a good one. Today we're pitting up the entire new Samsung Galaxy line, which includes the new S20, S20 Plus, the S20 Ultra, and can't forget the Galaxy Z Flip. We're going to put them through a variety of different tests to mimic real world usage and drain these suckers from 100% down to empty. Before anything, you know what you have to do. Pause this video and comment down below who you think will win. The results are actually quite surprising and entertaining. And last thing, just a shameless plug, I have full reviews on each of these phones with the S20 Ultra in the works, as well as a ton of other Samsung and Android content. So definitely click the cards shown throughout this video if you'd like to see those. But enough is enough. You know what you came for. I'm excited for this one. Are you ready? Let's just hop right in. But I'll pull up all of the specs up on the screen right now, so pause the video if you have to so you can have a better idea of what each phone is capable of. Keeping in mind that bigger screens require much more battery to use. More pixels equals more horsepower needed, thus lessening battery life, but is compensated with much fatter batteries. So there's a lot of factors that go in here. In particular, look at battery size, the physical screen size, as well as screen resolution. For this video, I had to make a choice. These new S20s, apart from the Z Flip, are capable of a 120Hz refresh rate and that super juicy and crisp 3200 by 1440 WQHD plus screen resolution, but not both simultaneously. I decided to instead crank the resolution up instead of the refresh rate, as that would be my personal choice, but fear not, as later on in this video I then changed the setting to 120Hz. Thus effectively also bringing down the resolution to that 2400 by 1080 FHD plus setting. It's how I think most people will use their phones. As my last battery drain test last year for the S10 line, I bumped down the resolution to match the S10e, but later on figured that most people probably won't bump it down, and most if not all will want to use the full screen resolution capabilities. Alright, enough of the nitty gritty. As always, you know how I do, folks. Same wallpaper since all phones are AMOLED panels. Same Wi-Fi network, same screen brightness. You already know the vibes. Everything in the settings was adjusted to be identical on all phones, less the aforementioned screen resolutions and later on refresh rates, as it just made sense to crank the phones up to their full power mode, like Cell did during the Cell games in Dragon Ball Z. Now that we've gone over specs, it's time to begin. Galaxy phones, you can go ahead and camera bump. Let's make this official. Okay, so first test, you already know. I had to leave Netflix running because, well, truthfully, it was the first test because I had a lot of errands to run, and I kind of had to leave a lengthy test here. But we left Atypical running, which if you haven't watched, by the way, is a hilarious show. So I left the 4 phones running beginning from full power, each one juiced up from 100%, as I mentioned, for a little over 3 hours, and when I came back, was surprised to see them so high. I meant high like in battery life, not. Anyway, the standard S20 came in at 74%, followed by the S20 Plus at 76%, with the ultra bulky S20 Ultra apparently never missing them treadmill cardio gains, coming in at a super impressive 77%, followed by the Z Flip trailing slightly behind with 73%. So for 3 hours, only dropping a quarter of their tank, that's not too bad if you ask me. I made a poll on YouTube asking you guys where you set your screen brightness and adjusted brightness accordingly for this test. So these phones are roughly all on about 70 to 75% brightness with blue light filter turned off, just an FYI. Next up, we tested the hallmark feature of these phones, a 30-minute recording test. I figured a lot of us stay on Snapchat and sending each other dank memes throughout the day, and figured recording for 30 minutes seemed adequate. Keep in mind, the S20 line are all capable of recording video at 8K, while the Z Flip being limited to only 4K. I cranked up the rear video size to the highest each phone supported, so basically all the S20s recorded at 8K and the Z Flip at the max 4K. Again, this was a personal decision. It's so hard to please everyone, but like I said, I just felt most people will utilize the full capabilities of their phones majority of the time instead of using their device at half potential. Sure, you'll have the occasional instance where you'll want to record at 4K to save on storage, but to each their own. So anyway, this test surprised me the most as I don't know what went on here, but recording video continuously after 30 minutes, it seemed each and every phone here took a fat ol' L. Can you guess how much each phone went down by in only 30 minutes? 5%? 10%? Actually, much more than that. Barely into our second test, the S20 drops to an eye-watering 56%, an 18% drop after filming for just 30 minutes. The S20 Plus down to 62%. The S20 Ultra lost the lead, coming down to 61%, and the Z Flip still lagging in last place at 54%. This is a perfect time to mention that when taking pictures, the S20 Ultra is far ahead with those insane cameras, including the behemoth 108 megapixel wide-angle lens, which may have a huge detriment to battery having to take shots with all those pixels. But still, all phones holding up pretty well for almost 4 hours, with 3 of them recording at 8K and 1 at 4K. For our third test, we did a simple 60-minute standby test, and I thought I'd be able to be productive scripting off camera while leaving these phones idle, but unfortunately, this test proved to be way more annoying than I anticipated. Trust me, I tried using 3 different apps to make the screen timeout timer indefinite instead of limiting it to the 10-minute maximum these phones come with. Unfortunately, none of the 3 apps worked in stopping the display from dimming and ultimately going to sleep. So for the rest of this test, I had to keep my eyes peeled continuously for hours on end, stopping them from going to sleep as I wanted to do. A nap during these tests is the move, but sadly, I couldn't. For my efforts, and in the name of experimentation, a like would be greatly appreciated. It helps out the channel so much, and if you like my tech content, you should definitely consider subscribing and ringing that bell so you don't miss out on any of my videos. But back to the action. I had to get up about every 8 minutes or so to prevent the screen from turning off. But after 60 minutes of the phones on idle, basically in chill mode, we have the S20 at 50%. The S20 Plus at 56%, the S20 Ultra still being slightly bested at 55%, and the Z Flip down under half tank at 47%. Next up, we kind of sort of did the same test to see how effective the battery life was while screens were turned off, kind of replicating how your phone's battery drains while you have it in your purse or in your pocket. And during this test, I was able to sneak in a quick nap, which is always a plus. I mean, if you don't like naps, something wrong with you. After 60 minutes of inactivity, display off on all 4. We can see that across the board, each phone only dropped 1%, dropping to 49 on the S20, 55 on the S20 Plus, 54% on the Ultra, and 46% for the Z Flip. Still, when comparing all 4, they're all pretty much around the same battery range. I'm actually quite impressed. Several hours into this battery drain test already, and for the next one, I tested out a feature I really enjoy and performed the same test last year on the S10 models. I'm talking about wireless power share, a feature I wish the iPhones would have. In a nutshell, wireless power share allows you to literally share your battery life with someone else. In this case, I opted to perform this feature using my AirPods Pro, mainly because they were about to die and I was getting ready to head out to the gym, so hey, knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, right? I did this for exactly 10 minutes on each device. So I placed the AirPods Pro with PowerShare on one device and let the other 3 sit idle, then went on to the next, then the next, and then the next. After 40 total minutes of each phone wirelessly power sharing, we arrive at the following results. The S20 slid to 41%, while the S20 Plus only went down 5 points, down to half capacity. The S20 Ultra still lagging behind a single percent, down to 49%, and the Z Flip slowly running out of gas, dropping to 38%. For the record, power sharing is insanely awesome and can really save you some trouble when not near a charger. Nearing the end here, at this time I had to hit the gym. So while I was away, I went ahead and played my MacBook review playlist on all 4 devices and had them running continuously for 2.5 hours. After the gym, I spent most of my time debating in the car whether buffalo wings or chicken Alfredo was the move. Obviously, I went with wings. All flat gang, you already know, only real men go for the flats. Mild sauce only though. I instantly regretted it though, since when I came back, these dudes were still fully functional with plenty of juice, while I desperately needed to drop an atomic bomb in the restroom. The S20 still at a mighty fine 21%, dropping just 20% battery after 150 full minutes of binge watching TheJuan&Only. The S20 Plus bested that, dropping 18 points down to 32%. The S20 Ultra slacking and is coming farther behind, now dropping to 30%, while the Z Flip, the pioneer to a potential foldable smartphone future, drops to 13%, almost gasping for air. If you raise your volume, you can actually listen to it gasp for air. Coming up next, I did a test that not many YouTubers do. I don't want to toot my own horn, but these are cell phones after all. So I took out my SIM card from Royale, my iPhone 11 Pro Max, and installed it to each phone, and then called my fake ass number from one of these text free apps. So feel free to call or text because I already deleted the number and the app, so yeah. I made the call last 10 minutes, far less than my typical phone call with my lovely mother, while the rest remained on idle, and performed it similar to the power share test where each one takes a turn. After being on the phone with each device for 10 minutes, the S20, now showing some signs of gassing, drops to 15%. The S20 Plus down to 26%. The S20 Ultra down to 24%. And the Z Flip, the mighty Z Flip, is down to 5% on its last legs. Here we go. Coming down to the wire. Is your choice winning? Did you expect these results? Will the phone with the fattest battery prevail? Will the S20 Ultra swing back and take the lead? Will the stock market come back as fast as it crashed? Who knows? But next up, you already know, baby, Twitter test. I spend a lot of time on social media due to YouTube, and mostly looking at hilarious and dank metal memes on my Instagram Discover page, so it was only right to throw in the Twitter test. But here is where things get interesting. It was at this point I decided to switch from the best resolution possible and switch to the 120Hz refresh rate. It is important to note once again that you can't have both. So by increasing the refresh rate, the screen resolution had to be turned down on the S20s minus the Z Flip. That's because the Z Flip does not support the 120Hz refresh rate, so the Z Flip largely remains the same. Again, some people will have their S20s at 120Hz and some at the WQHD Plus setting. Just thought this would be the fairest way to do it. Plus, with scrolling through Twitter, I wanted to see that fluid 120Hz goodness, man. So yeah, instead of just leaving Twitter on one single page, I actually scrolled down every 5 or 6 minutes and explored around a bit in a similar pattern on all 4 phones. This Twitter test was to be run for 60 minutes, but unfortunately, let's give a moment of silence for our fallen brethren. The Galaxy Z Flip succumbing to the grueling battery drain test at 10 hours and 58 minutes. So close to the 11-hour mark. The S20 finished the test with 6% to spare, the S20 Plus with 16%, and the S20 Ultra at 14%. How are those predictions? Let's keep it going and move on to my favorite mobile game ever, Clash Royale. Drop your names in the comments if you want to join my clan. 4,600 trophies and up only. I don't care if y'all think I'm a dweeb. I'm clan leader. I have to represent. But this test was harder than I expected, playing simultaneously on 3 devices. Man, so much concentration needed. But yet another brother taps out during this test. You guessed it, the Galaxy S20 couldn't take any more and dies at 11 hours and 28 minutes, exactly half an hour later as compared to the Z Flip. In the meantime, the S20 Plus and Ultra did survive with 11 and 9% respectively. Getting to the championship rounds with only 2 phones left, I put them back on YouTube and played Clash on my iPhone 11 Pro Max until they died, because not only was I sleepy, but I had to beat these chumps and show them who's boss. It's gonna come down to the wire, with only 2% separating the two. Who do you got? This is like Jesus Christ versus Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Who do you have? The S20 Plus or the Ultra? Let me know. Believe it or not, the S20 Ultra swung back, had the biggest heart of all these phones. The S20 Plus gave a valiant effort, but ultimately fell to the Ultra. Get it? The final time on the S20 Plus was 12 hours and 48 minutes. Insane. Almost on for a whole 13 hours before dropping. But ladies and gentlemen, your winner, finally tapping out 2 minutes before 13 hours. And new undisputed battery king for the S20 line, the Galaxy S20 Ultra. If you didn't get the Killer Instinct reference, then I would be quick to assume you had no childhood. But anyway, what have we learned today? I learned something new, and that is that the human race is pretty stupid. Like, who goes out and buys all the toilet paper from the supermarket? Come on, dude, not cool. But getting back to the phones, it never ceases to amaze me how well these phones perform. Almost 13 hours? Thank the Lord I started this test early this time and didn't procrastinate and then suffer until 3 or 4 a.m. with little to no sleep. It is important to keep in mind that these batteries are brand spanking new. Over time, batteries do degrade and offer less and less battery life as time progresses. It is also important to note that these were hooked up to Wi-Fi, normally preserving battery better as compared to having mediocre 3G coverage. Having poor cellular reception while using data equates in your phone's battery dropping faster than your local rapper's mixtapes, but still gives us a pretty decent idea at how well these phones are to perform. So in conclusion, in last place was the Z Flip, followed by the S20. Then the S20 Plus, which had to lead the majority of the test, and finally, the S20 Ultra swung back and took the crown. I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys, as it takes me a very long time to prepare these kinds of videos. At least a good week of filming plus scripting, plus preparation, and finally editing for a couple of days. So a like would be greatly appreciated, honestly, and if you want to see similar content just like this in the future, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. That's been it for me, folks. I can't wait to catch you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves and each other. I'm out.